Welcome, welcome. Another wonderful guest today joining us for Women's Health and Financial Wellness. We have Merridith Gonzalez. She's a certified long-term care specialist, which is mostly what we'll be talking about today, even though she wears a variety of other hats. She's also a health and wellness concierge who empowers women in midlife to confidently navigate their health, financial planning, and caregiving responsibilities. With over 20 years of experience in healthcare and wellness, she does specialize in long-term care, also disability income planning, cognitive health awareness, and menopause support. So she's really looking to help clients get connected with trusted professionals and then coordinating the resources that they need to really personalize their strategies so we can find that financial security that we're all looking for. So thank you, Meredith, so much for joining me today.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
I think these topics that we talk about, and especially the long-term care side of things, becomes more and more on our minds. Initially, probably from what we personally experienced with our grandparents, and now as we're getting older or our parents are getting older, that whole concept of what I call the what ifs in life really
Yeah.
just becomes more top of mind. So maybe we should start with really a clarification around what exactly is long-term care, and then why or how should families decide if they should even be starting to think about it now?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because, for me and my background that you mentioned, I have a healthcare background. And then I just kind of finagled my way into, I guess, kind of the finance world. So, like I said, I'm kind of a health and wealth concierge because it's a blend of all my experience. And just even as a kid growing up, I always was the one that was supportive of my grandparents. I'd go over and clean the dentures and help them with what they needed just naturally. It was just where I felt comfortable and where that space, I knew I was able to give where maybe my siblings didn't feel quite as comfortable or even going to a hospital, things like that. But, as far as what long-term care is, it's almost like I always say long-term care are all the things that we take for granted every day. We don't know we're doing it. But what happens is, and it comes from a variety of reasons. It's just not when someone is elderly. It could be when someone perhaps has an injury, a chronic injury. It could be an illness, and it could be aging. So I really try and help people understand that the need for caregiving in some kind of long-term care event could be at any age and stage. And really, what it looks like is when somebody needs support with things that they do in their everyday life, that's when, a long-term care event is occurring. To get a little bit technical, I guess if it is technical, is, what we're looking at is activities of daily living. So people refer them to ADLs. Like everything in this world, there's all these acronyms that, you don't know it until you're in that world. But what activities of daily living are, and again, like I mentioned, are things that we do every day. So there's kind of six of them that we're looking at. And if we can't do these independently or we need assistance with them, then that's when maybe a long-term care event is occurring. So those are, getting out of bed, so transferring, uh, toileting or incontinence. So there's three, bathing, eating, and dressing. These are all things that we're doing on an everyday basis that we're like, we take it for granted. But if we do need support, again, coming from injury, illness, or aging, with just bathing and dressing, then we might need caregiving for that. And another big one, I worked in brain injury and spinal cord injury and in brain health. A lot of people really overlook that cognitive side of it as well. That can happen at any age and stage. We're seeing this with a lot of, celebrities, and it's coming to the forefront, which is, something that I'm so appreciative that people are understanding some of this and being proactive a little bit earlier. But if you are unable to, if you have a cognitive impairment, you also, that is qualifying you as your activity of daily living. If you cannot take care of and you need assistance and you have a cognitive impairment, it's another big one where a long-term care need really comes into play.
I think it's important. I know I didn't totally realize the detail of the categories, independent living, assisted, um,
Mm,
needing long-term care versus memory care. And it shouldn't be a surprise, I guess, once we learn about it, that all of those definitions are met or not met when insurance is involved. So you have to understand what the facility will and will not do, and what the
right.
coverage will or will not cover, depending on that whole realm of the kinds of care that are needed. So
Yeah.
how do families, I mean, this is kind of one of those, to me, it's almost like estate planning. This is not pleasant thought process stuff, and families don't
Yeah.
want to think about it now or wait until it's actually happening.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting too, because I want to say perhaps it's been in the last 3 to 5 years that people are talking about it more. You had mentioned even in my bio menopause. There's certain topics, especially women, we are talking about this more because it's affecting us every single day, most of the time, it's not all the time, but most of the time, it is the adult child, the daughter in the family that is responsible for the caregiving and the managing and the running around. And that's exactly it. They're navigating so much in life. They've got their own work, their own job, things that they're figuring out, their bodies changing, their relationships, their careers. It's a time of life where there's so much change, and now, in addition to that, we're navigating mom and dad. And we're, during our lunch hour or late at night, we're Googling and trying to figure out how do I get the right support for mom and dad. And also, look in the other direction at my kids and saying, I need to get them here. I need to get them here. Now I'm paying for college, whatever age and stage, that's at. And so women really are the ones that are taking on a lot of this burden, supporting. So I love that the conversation is really coming to the forefront because I think now it's easier to talk about it. I think people never want to talk about things that aren't right now. It's not tangible, you
Mhm.
know. And I feel like I say this a lot in my conversations. It's kind of like COVID. It's not if you're gonna get it, it's when you're gonna get it. And it's kind of the same thing. It's not if we're gonna die, and it's if we're gonna die and if we're gonna get sick and die.
Mhm.
So one of the two, you're either going to die or you're going to get sick and die. And for either of those cases, we need to be planned and prepared. And so that's what perhaps a long-term care planning or strategy. Sometimes it's insurance, sometimes it's not. And really what I really try and explain to people is have a conversation, understand what it means, understand what it will cost to have home care, to go into a senior community. And all we're doing is we're just saying, let's earmark a little pool of money that is independent of this retirement fund that you've perfectly planned for not the if, but when you get older and you need care. So that's what I try and help people. Don't be afraid to have a conversation with someone who is a long-term care planner because we're really just trying to set you up so it's a little bit more comfortable as you age.
You're right. And I think, people are insurance averse in general. No matter what kind of
Yeah,
insurance we're talking about, they're immediately guard up, negative, bad insurance company. And so I think part of that connotation is they're upfront so that even without knowing any more detail, there are a lot of common misconceptions. So especially for long-term care insurance, what kinds
yeah.
of misconceptions are you seeing kind of repeatedly?
Well, the main thing is, oh, it costs too much. And my question back to them is, does the insurance policy cost too much, or is it the cost of care that costs too much? And they don't know how to answer that because what they hear is, oh, well, it costs, 5,000, 10,000, 30,000, whatever, a month for mom or dad to get some kind of care. That's how expensive it is, and it's only going to get more expensive. So I think that's kind of the misconception is, insurance is expensive. And yes, 100% it can be. But I think that I'm talking to people a lot younger and a lot healthier. The younger and healthier you are when you even start this conversation, it gives you choices. It gives you choices whether an insurance policy is a right fit or some kind of investment or any kind of strategy that we can use. And again, I'll keep going back. We're just looking to setting aside a pool of money. How is that pool of money going to get built? We don't know yet. And that all comes with a conversation. That's what has to come first.
hmm And I don't know if this statistic is still um, current, but it used to be that, I think people don't realize underwriting for long-term care insurance is tighter than it is for life insurance. And
It
so
is.
that usually means once you're over 65, half of the people that apply say, yes, I want some, can't get it
Mhm.
because now they have health issues that they can't pass from
Yeah.
underwriting standpoint.
Yeah.
Do you find
You're
that
so
still the
right.
case?
Yeah, it is, and I think that's the challenge because I think most people think, they come to me when, oh, mom and dad are having these issues. I need to get a long-term care policy for them. And it's like, we may or may not be too late on this. Let's kind
Mhm.
of figure out what our options are. But we need to be talking about maybe you putting the mask on yourself first, because perhaps that might be the best strategy. But yeah, I think I'd take a little bit different approach because underwriting can be so challenging. They're underwriting morbidity as opposed to mortality. So looking to see if really you're going to need help with the moving and the cognitive and everything that really does slow down as we get older. Um, so really what I try and do is I take an approach where I have a conversation with a family, and usually there's something going on. That's why they're even interested in having a conversation. And I try and understand what's going on so I can help them relieve some of that stress and burden that's happening with mom and dad. So I can then connect them with maybe a home care agency or a placement agent or a senior community, somebody to help them take some of that relief off. And then I do a pre-screening. I mean, anybody that I talk to, I just get a good idea of what's going on with their age, their health, upcoming surgeries, anything that they're currently going through. People that are even in physical therapy on a new medication. Doesn't mean they can't be underwritten, but we have to wait a certain amount of time. They want to see stability. They want to make sure that whatever's going on is not a chronic concern. So, I tend to do that first. And before I even talk about the different ways we can create this pool of money, I find out, what do you even qualify for? There's often times that they don't qualify for anything. And now we got to look at something that maybe isn't an underwriting product, right? Or they maybe only qualify for one option. And I'm like, okay, great. You only have one decision. You can either, you don't have to make a decision. We only have one way to design this for you. So, yeah, I think that's a hard part is people used to think really when I'm 65 and older is when I need to talk about how to plan for long-term care. And ideally, sweet spot, if I can talk to people 45 to 65,
Mhm.
I would love it all day long.
Sure. The premiums
Yeah,
are more affordable, and yet the thing they always have to remember, no matter what the premium is that's the smaller check if you end up needing care. You're writing the smaller
100%.
check than the payment to the facility. But I know it's a gamble. That's the thing with insurance in general. So if they're aware of at least what the insurance looks like, what other options then are good for
Mhm.
families to be aware for covering long-term care costs.
Yeah, and I think too that a lot of people think there's that one way to plan for it where if you don't use it, it's gone. And there are so many other strategies now that we can look at that, give some guarantees or give some, benefits that's just not losing your money if you don't need care. But I do also tell people, you know, it's not an if, it's really a when. We are living longer with more chronic conditions, so it's really is a when. But also peace of mind and choices. And every day when we get in our car and we go to work and we go to soccer and we do everything we do, we don't cross our fingers hoping we're going to get in a car accident so we can use our policy. We pay our premiums so that way that money is there when and if we need it.
It's a tough topic. How do you help families even start the conversation? Sometimes it comes from the kids, to the parents, or maybe it's even a couple that one has these ideas and the other one thinks, no, 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 we don't need to go there.
Yeah. It's interesting because it really is about kind of the overall plan. And I think that's why I've really found supporting people in this concierge kind of consulting business where the health and the wealth have really come together. I think a lot of people are operating in silos. So they have their doctor, they have their, hormone specialist, women in particular, their nutritionist, their trainer. And then on the wealth side, they have their estate attorney, CPA, financial advisor. Sometimes they don't even have all of those. Oftentimes they don't have all of those. And even when they do, they don't know how they all work together, And so I think that an easy way to come to start this conversation is just understanding what do you have in place? Who are your doctors? Who are your advisors? Let your kids know what you have in place. If you do have an estate plan in place, your family needs to know your decisions. Power of attorney, healthcare directive, what are my wishes? So there's so many conversations that are just natural conversations, and it's really attacking it or approaching it, I should say, with like a sensitivity, curiosity, support. Hey, mom, dad, we just want to make sure this is a collaborative approach. I want you to know what's going on with my finances and my wishes because there are children that, have needs before parents even have needs,
Mhm.
and vice versa. So if everyone's on the same page, I think that's really where I try and motivate the conversations to start. And then it's not scary. Then it's not talking about when you die or you're so old, it's, hey, this is a collaborative team approach, and how are we going to support one another with our needs, and what do we want? What are our wishes?
Right, absolutely.
Yeah,
And everyone is different, money is still, from a society standpoint, a taboo topic. It's
yeah,
different in every family and how they do or don't talk about it. But I'm with
yeah,
you. If you can relate it to yourself first, hey, I just read this book, or oh my gosh, we just got our will updated, and it made me think about all these things. I call it a softball because you're just kind of
yeah,
throwing it up in the air to make an observation, and you might say, so how did you feel when you drafted your will, or
mm,
something, to just see what conversation comes of it and then try to, glean more for all the right reasons too. It's the assurance, I think, that
yeah,
it's for all the right reasons that's especially
yeah.
helpful.
Yeah, and going back to the kind of the insurance taboo that you were talking about, I think if people realize that they can have these conversations with professionals without feeling by the time they get out of the call or the Zoom or whatever way you're meeting with people these days, that it's going to be a sale. It's there, someone's going to be pressuring me to do something. It really is about the conversation. And when you're working with someone that is really leading with part forward, that's why for me it is about where are you right now? Are you in any kind of crisis? And what resources can I provide you to help you first? Then we can figure out what planning makes sense for you.
Sure, sure. Yeah, avoiding the in crisis mode, but maybe some signs that, to me, age alone is a sign,
Yeah.
but there are
Yeah.
other things that can kind of start to creep up that might be prompting people to be thinking about or having those home care, assisted living wishes conversations.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's interesting too because I think a lot of signs perhaps are overlooked. Um, and I worked in brain health, and some of the modifiable risk factors, they call them, are things that we're doing every day. Like, are we eating right and getting the exercise and sleep and the stress? And one of the really, kind of shocking that I didn't really know for many years was hearing loss. Hearing loss affects your cognitive ability. It can affect, I guess I should say, your cognitive ability. And so if you're seeing mom and dad putting up the TV or at a restaurant, not engaging, or maybe avoiding kind of
Right.
social situations. You know, people sometimes think that, oh, they're losing their mind, they're, having some cognitive impairment, perhaps, but it could be something where they just need to go get their hearing checked. And just being aware of changes, if people are falling a little bit more often, maybe there's some balance issues that they need to get addressed. So just some of those little things that you just started noticing a little bit different
Mhm.
coming from any age and stage. I mean, I always try and say it doesn't have to be the 80-year-old. If there's something different
Mhm.
coming, a behavior that seems a little off,
Mhm.
talk to someone, talk to a professional, and just make sure. I'd rather be safe than sorry.
Good. Yeah, definitely. And so that's part of that being safe is the being prepared too. So if we think about just some simple things that people can kind of do to be prepared for what if down the road without feeling overwhelmed. The more you can do in advance, usually the better
Yeah,
that goes.
exactly, exactly. So that way, when the time comes, we already know our game plan. We're ready to go.
Once again, it's forcing people to think about a potentially difficult time that could occur. And yet,
Hmm.
the more organized you are, as far as do I know where everything is? What are the resources that we can access? How do we access them? Who can access them?
Yeah,
Compiling all of that is, I know in my practice and in my passion, I see the need for all of that and went through it exactly with my parents. And so,
yeah.
because we had everything in place, documents and organized, it was seamless when the time came for the assisted
Mhm.
living and the long-term care. Um,
Yeah,
so getting
I would
organized
agree.
resources are absolutely, I'm a fan.
I would agree. And it's funny because the families that I do work with that mom and dad do have a policy, a long-term care policy. They were so robust. And back when they got the policies, they were super cheap. No one thought that anyone was going to use them. They had a 5% compound, the money was growing in it. But the families that I work with that their parents do have a policy in place, they say, it doesn't make it any easier
Hmm.
dealing with whatever mom and dad are going through,
Sure.
but it does relieve the burden just a tad bit. It's not like your life is not changing,
Hmm.
but it just kind of allows you to not have one little aspect that you're not worried about the organization, so they don't have to go figuring things out,
Hmm.
and the funding so that their life isn't necessarily changing where now you need all the siblings perhaps are getting together to figure out scraping money to help mom and dad pay for things. And we all know from experience and families that I've worked with, that can cause its own chaos and family dynamics that is just not what's needed at that time. And that those dynamics tend to last longer than you really kind of want them to. So
You're right.
organization, be planned.
Yeah.
That's my hope.
Yeah. Communication all the way around, right? From the organization
Absolutely.
side and the if this happens, what are your wishes? We want to be sure we're following your wishes. So, so much to
Absolutely.
talk about, Meredith. It's a lot to cover in a short amount of time. So listeners might want to connect
Yeah.
with you or find out more about your area of long-term care specialty. So, what would be the best way for them to reach out?
Yep. LinkedIn is always great for me. You can connect on LinkedIn. Meredith Gonzalez. I have kind of a interesting spelling name. So it's Merridith Gonzalez with two Z's. And I know you'll put that in the notes and everything to
Absolutely.
connect with me. Always a really, really good place. And then we can schedule some time for a conversation, or if you have just, need some resources and referrals to people within my network. That's my goal. My goal is to make sure that we're preparing people before the chaos. And I
Absolutely.
think it's just my way to support the people in my community and just kind of help me. I think I lead with my heart, and this is a passion for me. So helping and supporting others is what I love to do. So happy to connect.
Excellent. Well, we know we do better when we can prepare in the calm and not the storm. So reach
Agreed.
out to Meredith. Thank you for listening, and we'll look forward to more conversations in the future.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.